So picture this, a young Filipino kid, probably nervous as hell, standing on a stage in front of thousands of people. Cameras everywhere, bright lights. And across from him sits this American judge, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, already wearing that look. You know the look, the one that says, "I've already made up my mind before you even open your mouth." And in that moment, before this kid even sang a single note, the judge let out a smirk, a laugh. Like the whole thing was a joke to him. Like this kid had no business being there. And I need you to stay with me here, because what happened next is the kind of thing that makes you want to rewind it just to watch it again. I've seen a lot of these talent show moments, a lot of them. The underdog story is basically a genre at this point, but something about this one hit different. Maybe it's because Filipinos have this thing, this reputation in the music world that somehow still gets slept on by people who should know better. Or maybe it's because that smirk from the judge felt so familiar to so many people watching. Not just Filipinos. Anyone who's ever walked into a room and felt like people already decided you didn't belong there. Let me give you a little context first, because this story makes a lot more sense when you understand where it's coming from. The Philippines has been producing world-class singers for decades, like quietly, consistently, without needing the world's permission. If you've ever heard a Filipino sing at a family event, at church, at a karaoke bar, you already know. There's something in the culture, in the way music is woven into everyday life there, that produces voices that just don't quit. It's not an accident. It's not luck. It's generations of people who treated singing like breathing, like it was just something you do, something you pass down. So when this young talent stepped onto that stage, he wasn't just representing himself. Whether he knew it or not, he was carrying something bigger, and the judge, sitting there with that dismissive energy, had no idea what was about to happen. Now, I'm not going to pretend I know exactly what was going through that judge's head. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he'd sat through 100 auditions that day. Maybe he had some bias he wasn't even fully aware of. But the moment that smirk appeared, the audience saw it. The cameras caught it. And the kids saw it too. And here's the part that gets me every single time. He didn't flinch. He stood there, adjusted the microphone, took a breath, and then he opened his mouth. And I want you to imagine the sound filling that room. Not slowly, not gradually, immediately. From the very first note, something shifted. You could see it in the audience first, that moment when a crowd stops being a crowd and becomes something else, becomes one single organism all reacting at the same time. Heads turning, people sitting up straight, someone in the front row putting their hand over their mouth, and then the judge's face. That's the shot everybody talks about. That's the moment that got clipped and shared millions of times across social media, because the smirk was gone. Completely gone, replaced by something that looked a lot like shock, and then, if you watch closely enough, something that might have even been embarrassment. The slow realization that he had just underestimated someone in the most public way possible. The performance kept going, and it only got better. The voice kept climbing, kept pushing, kept doing things that made you forget you were watching a competition. It stopped feeling like a talent show moment and started feeling like a concert, like something you'd pay to see. The kind of voice that makes you think about all the voices that never got a stage, never got a microphone, never got a chance, and wonder what we've been missing. By the time the last note rang out, the audience was on its feet. And look, standing ovations happen on these shows. They're not rare. But there's a difference between a polite standing ovation and the kind where people are genuinely losing their minds, where the applause sounds almost desperate, like the crowd is trying to say thank you. This was the second kind. The judges, all of them, including the one who had smirked, stood up. And now comes the part of the story that people keep talking about, because the judge had a choice in that moment. He could have stayed quiet. He could have given some generic praise and moved on. But instead, he spoke. And what he said, whether it came from genuine humility, or from the pressure of the cameras, or from some mix of both, actually landed. He acknowledged it, not in a dramatic, over-the-top way, but in a way that felt real. He looked at this kid and basically said, "I was wrong about you. Before you even started, I was wrong about you." And the kid's response to that? Gracious. Completely gracious. No ego, no "I told you so" energy, just a quiet confidence. The kind you can't fake. The kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are, regardless of what anyone in that room thinks. That clip spread fast, and it spread in a specific way. It didn't just go viral among people who follow talent shows. It traveled into communities that don't usually share that kind of content. Filipino diaspora groups were sharing it everywhere. Comment sections were filling up with people tagging their parents, their lolas, their friends. "This is us," people were writing. "This is what we've always known." And then something interesting happened. Non-Filipinos started watching it and getting into the comments to say, "Wait, I had no idea." Like, genuinely surprised. And that surprised reaction actually sparked a whole separate conversation about why that surprise exists in the first place. Why does the world keep acting shocked when Filipino talent shows up and dominates? Why is it always framed as an upset, as a surprise, as something unexpected? That conversation matters. It's bigger than one talent show moment, bigger than one judge's smirk. It's about which voices get taken seriously before they open their mouths. It's about who gets the benefit of the doubt and who has to prove themselves 10 times over just to get a fair shot. And I think that's why this video hit as hard as it did. Because it wasn't just a great performance. It was a great performance wrapped inside a moment that a lot of people recognized. That feeling of being dismissed before you're even given a chance. That moment of proving someone wrong, not with words, not with arguments, but with undeniable, inarguable, breathtaking talent. You know what's wild, though? This isn't even the first time something like this has happened. Filipino singers have had these moments on international stages before, and every time, there's this collective reaction from the Filipino community. Part pride, part frustration, part exhaustion. Pride because, yes, look at this, look at what we produce. Frustration because why do we keep having to prove it? Exhaustion because it never seems to fully stick. The world marvels for a moment, and then the next time a Filipino steps on an international stage, somehow the doubt is still there. But maybe, and I'm genuinely hopeful about this, moments like this one are slowly changing that. Every time a clip like this spreads, every time millions of people watch a Filipino artist shut down a room, the narrative shifts a little. The assumption of mediocrity gets a little harder to hold on to. And the next Filipino kid who steps onto a stage somewhere in the world maybe gets just a tiny bit more respect before they even sing the first note. That's worth something. That's worth a lot, actually. And going back to that judge for a second, I don't want to completely villainize him because honestly, his reaction at the end, the way he handled being wrong, that was its own kind of moment. It's hard to admit you prejudged someone. It's hard to do it on camera with thousands of people watching, and the fact that he did it anyway, that he looked that kid in the eye and said essentially, "I underestimated you." That's something. It doesn't erase the smirk, but it's something. What I keep coming back to, though, is the kid himself. Because at the end of the day, he's the whole story. He walked into a room where somebody had already decided he wasn't worth taking seriously, He felt that energy. You know he felt it, you could see it on his face. And instead of shrinking, instead of letting it get in his head, he just sang. He just did the thing he came there to do. And he did it so well that there was simply no room left for doubt. That's not just talent, that's character. That's the kind of mental strength that doesn't come from a class or a coach. It comes from believing in yourself when the room doesn't believe in you yet. And if you're watching this and you're someone who's ever been in a room that didn't believe in you yet, whether you're Filipino or not, whether it's about singing or something completely different, I hope this story hits you the way it hit me. Because the world is full of people ready to smirk before you even get started. And the answer to that, the only answer that actually works, is to be so undeniably good that they have no choice but to stand up. That kid did it. On one of the biggest stages in the world, with the cameras rolling and the whole audience watching, he did it. And nobody who was in that room that day will ever make the mistake of underestimating a Filipino singer again. Approximately 10 minutes at natural speaking pace, 1,450 to 1,500 words.